You're listening to Symposium, a year-round conference in the arts, brought to you by Pipeline Artists.
Welcome to Hard Truths from Screenwriter to Graphic Novelist. We are very excited to bring Tom, I'm going to get this right, Krajewski, Ronnie Brown, and Spike Scarberry here to talk about all the different things about comics and answer your pressing questions. Tom co-created the new DC Comics superhero primer and wrote the graphic novel in which he debuted. The book has become #1 bestseller numerous times, and 3 sequels will be released each year starting the summer of 2024. So get ready for that. And we will put a link to it so you can go check it out. Since 2004, he's been writing on various television series for Nickelodeon, Disney, Warner Brothers, and Cartoon Network. Shows include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Snoopy Show, Iron Man, Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, Care Bears, Power Rangers, The Penguins of Madagascar, and The Fairly Odd Parents, the last of which he was Emmy nominated in the category of Outstanding Writing and Animation. His most recognized work was as story editor on the Netflix series Buddy Thunderstruck, produced by the team behind Robot Chicken. He's an alum of Emerson College, and his latest story editing and producing job lasted for 3 seasons on the hit animated BBC series Boy, Girl, Dog, Cat, Mouse, Cheese. Ronnie Brown has worked on a plethora of network productions for ABC, Adult Swim, TLC, NBC, Hulu, Netflix, and has served on the writing staff for Black Dynamite, the animated series on Adult Swim, La Golda for Disney Kids, Daniel Spellbound for Netflix, Math Party for Netflix and Jim Henson Studios, and more. She also is an exec at Pipeline. Yeah, the hardest job of all. Spike Scarberry is also a Pipeline exec and a screenwriter who is writing comics as well and a children's book. After spending time at an agency, production company, and TV network, Spike left the politics of Hollywood behind to focus on his passion, helping young scribes tell more dynamic stories. And he writes a lot of fantastic articles for Pipeline Artists. And I will drop a link of his articles in the recording video too. So I am going to leave the room for these 3, but I am still here in the background. So enjoy, and don't forget, put your questions in the Q&A box. Thanks.
Let me just say before we start, I feel like I am just like with 2 titans of the industry. Like, you guys have accomplished so much more than I ever have. So I am just in awe of all that you guys have done.
Yeah, why don't you just log off right now and let me and Ronnie talk?
Great, love it. So do I still get paid?
Sure, I don't care. It's not coming out of my pocketbook. So wait, Ronnie, you worked on Black Dynamite?
I did. That was so much fun.
The movie is like in my top 10 of all comedies of all time. I loved. I always get his name wrong. Is it Michael J. White or Michael Jai?
Michael Jai White.
Michael Jai White.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved that movie. I had seen some of the animated series as well. I did not know that you worked on that, but that's really good. I'd like to hear more about that and like what that was like, turning that from a movie into an animated series. Wow.
Yeah. And I think they had a comic book at some point as well, but that was an adventure, to say the least. I've got so many stories on that show, including Michael getting lost a lot.
Getting lost?
Yes, on his way to recordings. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. The guy who's only producing the show and created the character got lost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, celebrities,
since we're on the point of praising everyone's work, Tom, you worked on Penguins of Madagascar, which I am not going to lie, as a fully grown adult man, I watched almost all those episodes because they're so dang hilarious. So quite frankly, I'm in awe of the fact that you worked on that show.
Well, thanks. As is common in animation, and like when I work on shows, a lot of times I'll just get like 1 or 2 scripts for each show here and there. So for that show, I only did 1 script, and we had Bill Motz and Bob Roth, the guys who kind of created the show for television based on the movie. Those guys were brilliant. They are brilliant. They also created one of my favorite Disney movies, which is Sky High, with the superhero high school movie, which is fantastic. So those guys really kind of shepherded that show. But thank you. It's all because of talented guys like them or talented people like them. But thanks, man. I'm glad you watched it.
Yeah, no, I very much enjoyed it. But why don't we start out? Why don't we kick this off by you kind of telling us your journey through the industry? What have you done? How did you get here? And why are you talking to us today?
I don't know why I'm talking to you today.
Yeah,
I got some.
We're going to find out by the end of this session. I promise you that.
Yes.
Yeah, I got some hard drinking to do. Why am I here? No. I clearly, like anybody else, I think just grew up loving movies and TV shows. So I went to school, college at Emerson College in Boston to study film and mainly screenwriting. So I came to LA in '99, and eventually, through friends of a friend, I got a job at Nickelodeon. I didn't mean to get into animation. I wanted to be like a feature screenwriter. But you take any job you can get, and it turns out it was like a dream job working at Nickelodeon Animation. So from there, I started as like a production assistant or a script coordinator, and then just like rolled my way up into being a writer, which is typical. And so I've been doing that, yeah, for 20 years. But it started at Nickelodeon, kind of by accident. Again, it's who I knew that helped me get in there, but I was prepared for it since I was I studied writing. And then just a few years ago, rolled into comics through meeting people in the industry. I live in LA, so that's how it happens. And yeah, very grateful to be having the career that I have. Yeah, but that's why I'm here.
Was it ever a target for you? Like, did you grow up as a kid who read a lot of comics? Did you always kind of want to go into that field, or was it more of just like happenstance? You happened to meet the right people who opened the right doors for you to start writing for comics?
Yeah, interesting. So like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a comic book artist. Like I would sit and just like draw superheroes all day long. I love superheroes. And then I just never really studied the craft of drawing. So I never, you have to actually, some people, yes, you say that they say they have natural talent for drawing. That's true. But I think, you can really work hard at it. And I was just lazy, so I didn't work hard at it. So when I got into animation, I kind of left comics behind. And then about, 5 years ago, the opportunity just arose where it was, we can always talk about it later if you have more questions, but it was like the right time. It was luck, favoring the prepared. I had an idea, and then I met the right person at the right time. I had originally conceived my comic book primer for DC as an animated series because I am an animation. But then when I met somebody from DC Comics and it was pitched to them, because I knew they were looking for new comics, we kind of soft pitched it to them, never thinking much of it. And then that's how it happened. So I didn't intend even for this character to be a comic book until I met someone at DC who really liked it. And that's how that came about.
Well, so that segues into actually my last question that I had, which was, would we ever see an animated series coming from Primer?
Yeah, I probably. I mean, so Primer is a DC Comics superhero, which is part of Warner Brothers. And now that James Gunn has come in to kind of commandeer all of the DC properties and kind of unite them into this massive shared universe thing, I don't know when or if a Primer show would happen anytime soon. When they originally bought this character from us back in, I think it was 2018, actually. So yeah, maybe it was 6 years ago. One reason DC wanted to create this character and own it is because my writing partner and I were in the animation world. So it was their plan to do the comic book and also make it an animated series, which me and my writing partner could easily run since we had so much experience doing that, writing and showing and producing. So that was the intent. This kind of fell to the wayside. We did develop it as a live action series for a while with two different showrunners, and that was pretty cool. But then again, things just kind of got, as is development held, just fell again to the wayside. But yeah, I mean, you'd probably have a better chance of seeing a Primer animated series sooner rather than a live action movie or TV show. But that'd be nice. Yeah.
Tom, you said something really interesting there, and I think it'd be good for the people in the audience for you to expound upon it. You talked about how DC bought the idea from you, whereas if you weren't with like another comic publishing company like Image, that wouldn't have been the case. Can you talk about the space of creator-owned comics versus DC and Marvel and those kind of companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So see, I mainly just have the experience with DC, and I do know that Image and other publishers, yes, as you said, are creator owned, which is great because, you have who created The Walking Dead. I can't remember Robert Kirkman. So he created The Walking Dead, I think, under Image Comics, and now under Skybound Comics. So since those are creator owned, Image was created by all the titans of art back in the '90s, right? So Jim Lee and all those guys to specifically give power to the creators so they could own their creations like basically fully. So if you have a comic book with Image, you own the rights to it. It's you, the creator, or you and your creative team that own that character. You can choose what to do with it. You can sell it for whatever money you want. You can own the rights to the merchandising and get all that money, to yourself and not splitting it with anybody, which is great. With DC Comics, they have their method, which is they do buy it. And as a creator, I still get like percentage of royalties and residuals, and that's great. It's a lot smaller than it would be if I had gone with Image, but I never would have made this comic book with Image. So it was meant for DC.
Right.
I couldn't have probably got this sold to Image. I probably couldn't have taken the artist that we even have, Greta Lusky. I could not have gone to Image with her, and they probably wouldn't have bought the pitch. So it's a trade-off, but I'm really, really happy. And someone like DC, they treat the creators now really, really well. I think they probably learned from past mistakes, and I'm really, very fortunate that they do, include me in terms of like the royalties and the creative aspects going forward for all things Primer. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing Image or something else, yeah, you could make some serious cash if you have a hit. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have a greater upside, right? Because if it's a hit like Saga with Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, they're making ends of money because that thing sells thousands of copies an issue.
Yeah.
But you're also taking on all the risk. If you end up having to make the comic yourself and you have to pay the line artist, you have to pay the colorist, you have to pay the letterer out of pocket, you got to get cover art. I mean, that's all coming out of your pocket. I mean, no one's paying you for that. So you're basically making it on the speculation that people are going to buy it, which is a big speculation if you don't have a name. And so with the creator-owned comics, stop me if you think I'm wrong, it's higher upside, but it's also much riskier for you financially.
Much riskier.
If it doesn't work out, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. And that is very true. You have to keep that. If you go to Image, when you present them with a pitch, you're telling them, hey, this is our creative team. And so it's also, yes, up to you to keep that creative team together. Like, you are the boss. You have to make sure that everybody's happy and, getting paid correctly. Otherwise, if the team falls apart, the comic itself could fall apart. But you're right. You're taking that risk. Whatever you create and put your money into in a creator-owned comic could completely fail, and then you're out of money. So yeah, there is that risk. But, I'd love to take that risk at some point. So we'll see.
Let's talk about process for a moment, because you come from the world of animation, which from my experience and from many other experiences, you usually work within a group and not just necessarily individually. And so there is a question, an audience question, and it says do primary comics like Batman, Spider-Man, etc. have writers' rooms as well? What's the difference between the animation writing process versus the comic book writing process there?
Yeah, I mean, with Batman and Spider-Man, I know that they have their writing teams and they have their specific editors, like at DC, who are in charge of the Batman properties or the Superman properties. And I don't quite know how they do it. When I was in animation at Nickelodeon or whatever, yeah, we had like a writer's room full of 4 or 5 writers at a time, and it was a lot of fun. I think for me, it's just very different now that we have just one editor, or my boss at DC Comics. It's just basically me and my writing partner tossing ideas back and forth to her, and giving us her feedback. So I don't know how they do it at Spider-Man or like Batman, but I feel like it's similar. My friend Zeb Wells is like a writer on one of the big Spider-Man comics right now, and I believe it's just him and then his editor at Marvel. So I feel like in comics, you kind of have that kind of like that power to get your ideas through. They're really just like one editor working with, one writer. So I don't have to have all these hands coming in. It's really helpful to have, yes, a bunch of writers in a room throwing out their ideas and their jokes. And that's awesome. It's very helpful, but it's also kind of really cool and freeing to be like, okay, it's just all my ideas going back and forth with my boss and seeing what I can come up with and seeing if I can put those puzzle pieces together to create something that would be fun and entertaining. So I hope that kind of answered the question, but probably not.
I think it does. And then like my question within that question was like, if you're thinking about either doing something independent or just preparing to go into, a bigger industry comic wise, like what software do you recommend people have or know, or anything different that they should be looking for there?
Oh, for software wise?
Mm-hmm. As
Yeah, I
opposed to
mean,
like Final Draft.
right. But yeah, we all use the Final Draft program for
Yeah.
for animation and stuff like that. With comic books, you can pretty much use anything that you want. I believe there are some programs out there. I just use whatever came on my laptop and kind of write it out like in a Mac Pages document. There is a format for it. It seems to be a little looser than the stricter standards for TV and film. You can kind of just write it the way you want as long as it's understandable what happens panel per panel. But yeah, so I don't really use anything other than basically Final Draft for animation and then my Pages app for comics. But I think they have templates in Pages for comics. I just don't use it. I just use whatever DC had sent me like a while ago, like a standard um, template that they had. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Why
But
don't we
yeah.
talk a little bit about the relationship you have with your editor? So you were calling your editor your boss earlier. Is that essentially how the relationship kind of works? So DC has bought your property. You now are under the supervision of this editor who then you pitch ideas to, and they can say, no, we don't like that. We want you to go in a different direction. How heavy is their creative hand? And I'm asking as someone
Yeah.
who's worked at television studios, working with writers, bringing it in. I'm just kind of curious how similar that is and how it feels from the creative side.
I mean, it feels great. It really is just cleaner this way. Working in TV and stuff, working with different executives. Like if I'm on an animated series, I'll have maybe a few executives from different animation studios
Mm-hmm.
giving me notes. Like there's this one show that I was on for the past 5 years, and we had three production companies involved. One was American, one was French, and one was British, the
Oh my
BBC.
gosh.
So they would all give us notes on this one show because they were producing it together. I had to please all of these people plus my own, producer on that show. And that's such a juggling act. It can be fun. Again, I like figuring out the puzzle pieces of what notes to take and what not to take. Usually I had to take all the notes and make it work.
Even if
But
they contradict.
yeah, it happens so way too often, and it shouldn't happen
Mhm.
that way. Which is one reason why I like comic books so much. Is it really is just like a one-on-one kind of brainstorm session, and uh, it's it just feels like it's more organic this way. I feel like with my editor at DC, she doesn't have these. I don't know. She I, it's just different. It's just different than like
Mhm.
when you're creating an animated series. They're real for Nickelodeon and Disney. They have to put like a ton of money behind that. You're getting a giant crew together, and you're trying to find all these animation houses to do your stuff. With a comic book, it's really just a very small group of people making the actual product. Me, my editor, and the artist who almost always does the coloring themselves and the inking, right? And then we have the letterer. So there's four people. Um, and so there's really not much, I feel like, more risk involved with comic books in terms of money. And, if you're putting together a show for Netflix, you got to spend tons and tons of money. I
Mhm.
feel like with Primer, they don't have to put as much money into it. So they can take those risks and kind of let us be creative and do the things that we want to do. And luckily, all my editors so far in any project I've been on, working with Marvel right now on a book that comes out later this year, the editors there have always been like these massive fans of comic books. So they have great knowledge and these massive imaginations. Um, you see that a little bit of that in animation too, but I think I've seen it mostly in comics, where you really have like a boss who kind of gets what you're doing, and has a lot of great solutions if you can't think of something. Um, but
That's
yeah,
really great. That's great to hear because it's nice to know that your boss is a fan of the medium and
yeah,
loves the medium. Because when I was in the Hollywood development space, I became very disheartened pretty quickly by how many people who work in the upper echelons of movies and TV don't care about the medium. They're just all money people trying to make
Money.
as much money as possible. So that's actually really great to hear.
I'm glad that you said that because that's very true. When working with someone like DC Comics, they have this massive world and it really is interconnected. So the editors kind of have to like know everything from every comic or every IP that they own. If I'm doing a show for Disney, the executives, they have so many executives working on all these different shows. There might be one executive handling, 2 or 3 Disney shows, another executive handling 2 or 3 other Disney shows. So they're not really kind of interconnected. So I feel like those executives don't know fully the other worlds that their network creates. But with DC, they really did hire, I think, the fans to be in charge. Obviously the most the worthy fans, the talented ones. But yeah, no, you said it, man.
We have a question in the Q&A, which I think would be great for both of you guys. Are all animation writers' rooms and comics operating? Are they all basically operating through Zoom now, like they were during the pandemic, or are they actually in person again and they're actually meeting again in person? I don't know the answer to that question because I've never worked in a writer's room, but I bet you guys do.
Ronnie?
I'll take that because I actually.
Oh no, she froze right as she was going to answer.
Ronnie, you broke up on us.
Ronnie, come back.
I'm back.
Okay, there
you froze right as you're about to answer.
How was my stance? Was it like this?
Oh, it was very dramatic.
Not embarrassing at all.
Okay, good. No, I was saying that I actually lost my job last year because people went back to the office. But during the pandemic, it like, because I'm in Georgia, for everybody out there, I'm in Georgia. A lot of stuff that I work on is still in LA. And so during the pandemic, I was like getting work like crazy that I wouldn't normally get here in Georgia because the Zoom rooms were open.
Oh, wow.
But now some of them are closing them back up. But to my understanding, there's still a lot happening online, which that's a good question for you, Tom. Remote pretty much, or you going to office? Like, how's that working?
Yeah, it's funny because I live right here in LA in Burbank, literally like a few blocks from the DC building, and everything is done by Zoom. So, a lot of, like you said it, Ronnie, it's like during the pandemic, obviously everything switched to Zoom, and I feel like that kind of just killed a lot of the creativity of the business because I really missed being in those writers' rooms at the studio. It's a lot more energy from all these people being creative. But yeah, for me now, everything is Zoom. I've been doing that even before the pandemic, actually, because I do a lot of stuff with overseas. And it's not my favorite, but it's still what I'm doing. I mean, you're doing Zoom because you're in Georgia, but you do stuff for LA Productions, correct?
Yeah. And so it was, I didn't necessarily lose it because I got fired. I stepped away because as they were going back into office, I'm the only one on Zoom. And so it's awkward. So, but like, I understand, like being on Zoom that many years, I understood like the difference between, the synergy, the creative synergy and stuff, like, as opposed to being, in the room. I don't know if it's just our auras or something. The Zoom like eats it up as it transmits. I don't know. But yeah, that's just something for people to consider. Especially I believe a lot of these people are not in LA. So like, what are the odds of them contributing to the comic book world remotely? And would you recommend a move to LA in some regards still?
I mean, I've made a lot of my connections in person and not through Zoom. Obviously, during the pandemic, that's how I had to do my meet and greets, through Zoom. Mm-hmm. But I think it's much easier if you kind of do live in the area where everybody else is working. So you can meet them for drinks. You can just go out to their offices for lunch or whatever, make those connections and get where you want to be. So it might be easier now because they made it so easy to work from home. I assume it's probably got to be easier for people to break into comics or TV, while living in, middle America for a show that works, that staffs primarily in Los Angeles. But I still think it's much more beneficial to live in the place where they're making the stuff that you want to work on, So just for that in-person face-to-face time, I feel like the energy is different, as you're saying, like the auras or whatever. It's like when you're in a room with somebody and sitting across from them, it just feels so much more different than being on a Zoom, and they can see your enthusiasm for what you might want to be working on. So yeah, I don't love the Zooms. I don't, especially this one. I hate this one. Like,
Oh,
no.
well, we loved you until now, but why don't
I mean work Zooms. I don't love this. I love. We're talking about me, so I'm happy.
Right, that's fair. Yeah, but you were the star of this show, and as the star of this show, why don't you go a little bit deeper into how you kind of got that foot in the door? Someone in the Q&A asked, "Do you need an agent or a manager to submit to DC and Marvel?" It sounds like from what you're saying, you had that personal connection that kind of got in the door. So why don't you talk a little bit more in depth about how that happened, where it came about, and didn't having an agent or a manager, which I assume you do have one or both, help you at all in terms of getting that first pitch set up?
Yeah, so exactly. Had as I was just saying, like this is like proves my point. It's like I never would have been able to have this comic book with DC if I had not been in Los Angeles. I do have an agent. They handle everything I do for animation. I still have no agent or manager in comic books, if you can believe it. And I've been trying to get one. I have like a hit comic and sequels on the way. I still can't get an agent in comic books to help me get more. I know I've tried. But again, as I was saying, luck favors the prepared. We happened to meet an editor at DC Comics. My writing partner had become friends with this person, and had been friends for a while before the opportunity came up where our friend Michelle Wells, she was an editor at DC Comics. She's like, "Hey, do you guys have anything, any original ideas? We're looking to do some new graphic novels, for teens, the YA and MG audience." And so we happened to have it. And so my writing partner pitched the idea, soft pitched the idea to this editor, Michelle, I think at her birthday party. It's one of those typical Hollywood stories. You pitch somebody an idea just off the cuff and then they go for it. So honestly, you don't need an agent or manager to get to DC or Marvel, but I don't know how else you get into DC or Marvel other than the way that I did, which is, meeting people. I think a lot of times, when you go to Comic Cons and stuff, I believe they still do it. They'll do the portfolio reviews, right? Marvel or DC will have the artists come and they'll show them their work. And they found a lot of people that way. In terms of writing, I don't know how any other writers had gotten into comic books. I guess I should ask them. But
I mean, you're right. It's much easier for artists to get in because artists are in demand.
It's a visual medium.
It's a visual medium, and I would say it's a skill set with a higher bar to pass, because you can look at someone's art and within 2 seconds know if they can draw. You have to read a bunch of someone's writing to know if they can write and know if they can write consistently well. So that's one of the reasons that I was really pushing with Matt and Jeannie to start a comic centered contest for those writers out there, because it's so hard for writers to break in. So that's something that we did this year. It's the first year of the contest. It's one of the categories in the unpublished contest. So if anyone out there wants to try to break in, we are not able to submit to Marvel or DC yet, but as the contest gets bigger, we're trying to eventually get to a place we can put people in front of really big publishers, help get their name out there, hopefully let them break into the business.
That's awesome that you guys are doing it. This is the first year doing it?
This is the first year, yeah.
So what are you asking for from the writers who want to enter?
Yeah, basically at this point, I believe, Jeannie, I know you're listening. You can let me know if I'm wrong. I think we're looking for up to 20 pages or 20 pages maximum of a script that they've written, an original idea, just to kind of give us an idea of how their writing is. We're then going to whittle it down to a winner and a runner-up, and then we'll be able to start sending those out to the publishing connections that we made by going to all these comic conventions. But look, I want to be a comic writer as well. Basically, my story is I was working at the desk of a TV network and I was kind of hating my life because everything was going poorly. One of my bosses one day comes up to me, throws a comic on my desk and said, "Hey, read this. I hear it's good. It might be a TV series." I had never read a comic in my life, but I had to read this thing and let him know what I thought of it. Within 6 pages, I was like, "Nah, there's no way. This is way too out there. It's way too crazy. It would look ridiculous on screen." But I had to finish the entire thing to let him know, "Hey, this is why we're passing." It was Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. And I fell in love because it was so damn good. And that led me to all these other great series. And it kind of opened this world of storytelling that I didn't even know existed. So I was like, screw Hollywood. I want to get into comics now. But as I've started writing comics, I'm realizing the same thing. Like, how do new writers break in? It's really, really hard unless you make that magical connection like you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I, worked with the connections that I had at Pipeline to try to start a pathway which might be able to help writers in the future bridge that gap and try to like be able to break into the business.
Yeah, no, that's great that you guys are doing it, and it's like you said, it's like yeah. Actually, Ronnie, how did you get into the business yourself then? Because I said that I got into it because I knew people who got me jobs, but how did you get into this?
Well, so, and I was looking through your IMDb and went all the way down to the bottom and saw you started off on a reality TV show. And that's how I started, as a PA on a reality TV show. But my goal was, my goal as a child was to be an animator.
Oh, really?
And yeah, yeah. So I actually went to school for animation, which is like
That's cool.
wild to
Yeah.
do. So I went to school for animation and discovered that I actually don't like animating, but I like writing. And
Yeah.
so, I went out to LA. That's my villain origin story. Went out to LA and served a 10-year sentence and worked between reality worked between
Me too.
reality TV.
You and me both, Ronnie.
Yeah, 10-year sentence. I did my bit. And so worked between reality TV and was able to eventually transition into my first animated show that I was a production manager on, which was Spaceballs. And
Oh,
yeah, it's because my roommate was a storyboard artist on Spaceballs. So those personal connections and people just like being in the right place at the right time is like, it's a big deal. It happens.
yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you knew you knew someone who knew someone who. Yeah, and so my friend was a writer on that show. Adam Schwartz, I think it was Schwartz or Adam Kosloff. There's one Adam guy that worked as a writer on that show. Anyways, but that's how you got into it, right? Yeah. So, and it's the same with comics. I think it's just like you kind of have to know somebody to get you in that door. And I still can't get an agent, but
That's crazy to me. Like,
it is
that's
crazy.
insane.
Yeah. So, but that's good that you guys are doing this
Yeah,
contest.
I actually didn't know there was specifically agents for. Did I freeze again?
Just for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Go
mean,
ahead, sorry.
there are. I used to be with this agency, and they did comic books, but I didn't do comic books when I was with this agency a long time ago. They were both, and they did animation and features and all sorts of stuff. They were so big that they did do comics. But there are, like smaller agents that do handle it, and they exist. I mean, I've been recommended to some from my friends who are in comics. But yeah. It just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
It is kind of a rough business, just entertainment in general.
Yeah.
It is super hard to break into. So
Every facet of it. And I've been thinking about it a lot since I kind of left Hollywood Prime. I'm still Hollywood adjacent, working for Pipeline and Film Pipeline and Book Pipeline and the comic stuff now. But it really is like in the business world, it's much easier to like look at clear results of like, all right, you met these metrics or you didn't. In Hollywood, it's much more hard to like find, all right, is this person really a good writer? Well, it depends who you ask, because you might give the same script to 10 people and 3 of them are going to think it's amazing and 4 are going to think it's okay and 3 are going to hate it. So it's really hard to kind of find like how, like it's hard to tell talent, and that's why you have to keep churning and keep meeting people and keep being consistent, because eventually the talent will show. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes. Short answer, yes. I was actually reading some of the questions as we were talking. So.
Yeah, well, there's actually several that I wanted to get to, and they're all kind of comic centric. So, Tom, talk about writing for an ongoing comic and how the deadlines and submitting scripts and getting issues out work like that. Because actually, I don't even know how that works, especially at a place like DC.
Yeah, I mean, with Primer, we're in a kind of like a unique situation. We started off just doing it as a graphic novel. It wasn't going to be a continuing series, and it's still not a continuing series. We're releasing these graphic novels every year, so we kind of have a lot of time built into it because that's just how they want to release them. I am doing a comic book with Marvel, which is a little different because they're going to release that as 4 issues starting this September. So I would say in some ways it's very similar to animation in terms of like deadlines. They just tell you when they want it, and if you're a fast enough writer and you have the ideas, you can just get it done. Um, but what was the question?
It was how do you like deal with deadlines and process of submitting scripts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's something I'm excited about, like working on either comic for Primer or for Marvel, it for me, I get so excited that I just kind of crank it out pretty easily and very quickly. Like I'm already way ahead on both my next Primer story and my Marvel Zombies book. The deadlines, um, I don't think they're as hard and as fast as animation. Again, because animation, putting that crew together, it's just a massive machine. A lot more people relying on you getting your stuff done on time. And I used to be a script coordinator for Nickelodeon, where I had to kind of be in charge of other people's writings or scripts. I was never the writer. I was just handling that and trying to get them to hand in their stuff and get it done on time, so we could again meet those deadlines and ship things overseas to get animated. Blah blah blah. With comic books, it's just I feel like it's a lot more stress free because of that. It really is just me. I don't have to rely on anybody else to get product from. It's just me writing it, and I know my editor can count on me. My editor knows that they can count on me. But you know, it's really just that. I mean, I don't know how else to really answer it, but
yeah, no, I think it's a good answer.
yeah.
Because I mean, I imagine it's similar to TV and film. Ronnie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I've seen the new curse word in the chat, in the Q&A a couple of times. So let's talk AI.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially in the world of comics, like as a person who does draw and loves the art side of animation and comic books, like the process and stuff like that, what do you think AI is going to do to this part of the industry? And the question was, do you think AI does good drawings? Which
I can chime in on this too when you're done, Tom.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
why don't you go first? Because you're probably as angry as I am. I don't
Well,
know. Or maybe not.
I will tell you this. When I first saw AI coming out, I was angry. And I was angry because I want to be a writer. And I saw a lot of people, especially people who I know, who were using AI to help them do what I do in terms of creating stuff that they couldn't normally do. And I didn't like that. And I still don't love the idea of where I think Hollywood is going.
Yeah.
And I think where Hollywood is going is eventually AI is going to become bigger. It's going to become better. This is the worst AI is ever going to be. And it's going to replace a lot of low-level writing jobs. And that's going to make it's already nearly impossible to get in. I think it's going to be even harder because they're going to use AI to pump out first or even second drafts of screenplays or TV pilots or episodes. They're going to get an upper-level writer who they know they can trust to polish it up.
Yeah.
And the jobs that you had, maybe you had 10 jobs in a writer's room, put down to one, and I really hate it. That being said, I want to create comics, and people have been talking in the Q&A about like how hard it is to come up with the upfront cost to make comics. It's really difficult, especially if you're doing create your own stuff. I've tried it. I've lost thousands of dollars trying to do it. I learned lessons from doing it, but it is hard. So I took a buddy of mine who does AI stuff, and I was like, hey, show me a little bit how this stuff works. Like, I'm curious to know, like, what are the capabilities of some of these programs? And I paid for some lessons with him. I worked for him for a couple months. And the answer to, does AI art look good? Yes, if you're willing to put in the time. Because the thing that I found is there is AI art that's amazing. I can actually even share. There's one image that I was able to make for the comic I want to do. Let's see if I can even share my screen. I'm not sure that I can. Point being, if I figure out how to do it, I'll share with you guys. You can make stuff that looks really, really good. The problem is it took me a long time to get one image. And for me, it was the value proposition of how much time it was going to take and how much effort it took was not worth that yet. That being said, I very much believe, again, this is the worst AI is going to be. I think in 3 to 5 years, it's going to get better. But I also know, as Ronnie said, it's a curse word in the industry. Like if you bring up on like an artist forum AI, or if you put out an AI generated comic book, I mean, they lambast you. They're gonna tar and feather you. So
yeah. I mean, I know you can't stop progress. So it's like if we're gonna have AI, no matter what, people are gonna use it to make their own comics, and honestly, that's fine. It's we've had technology, exponentially grow over the past, 100 years. taking jobs with just machines in general before, long before AI came out. So it's like, can we really complain about AI if we've been already letting kind of machines and computers take jobs from people? It's just another step in that progression. It just sucks though, I think. But personally, yeah, I mean,
think it's because it hasn't come for art yet, which is like the basis of
Yeah.
soul work. You know what I mean?
hmm Yeah, and I agree. I think part of maybe I'm completely wrong, but when I go to Comic-Con and I see the rabid fans who love the artists, it's like it's something that you can really. Did you create that?
Can you guys see
That's
my
AI
screen?
generated?
That was the first page of what I wanted to be my comic. That took
Wow,
so long to do.
it's really good.
Wow.
To get it right. Well, but
Yeah.
even just like having to tell the thing, I want a female deer took so long. I would write like female deer on hillside, or I'd write deer on hillside, and he would come up with multiple deer. The deer wouldn't have its head down eating grass, like the little details that you need for like, all right, this is what's going on in the comic. Getting those little intricacies of like how you wanted, like my first attempts at it, the moon in there was like 10 times larger than it was, like unrealistically big. And I'd be like, make the moon smaller, and it'd make it bigger. Like, so it's not ready yet, but if you like, you can make it look really good if you want to invest the time in it.
I'm just kind of I don't know if I'm embarrassed for you that you had to ask it to do a female deer. Isn't a female deer just a doe?
Well, I wrote doe and it didn't
I was
understand
gonna say,
what it
did you try
was.
woman deer?
Yeah, woman's deer.
Actually, I think I did that, and it made like a deer head and like a female body with like boobs.
Gotcha.
Like I had to specifically write female deer because if I said doe, it didn't understand it. It would make deer with antlers.
And that's why AI will never take over. It doesn't know the difference between doe and deer, a female deer. Yeah. No, that it is pretty cool. I mean, I think as a guy who can't draw as well either, I mean, I'd like to use that for my own, just like to play around. I think, like I said, I feel you can't stop progress. People are going to make it their own comics with it no matter what. Fine, you should be able to. Um, I don't know what to say. You can't stop people from doing what they want to do. I still feel again that like you have all those fans who love going to get an original piece from a human like Jim Lee, and being proud about, following one specific people. Those guys are celebrities, those artists. That's why they went off to create Image in the first place. They were celebrities. So I don't know how much AI is going to kind of affect DC or Marvel. I feel like DC and Marvel and Image really respect the humans who are creating the artwork, because those humans are kind of the product. They're the ones out there. They're the influencers in a way.
But also, how is that going to affect their fan base? Because I mean, you have the old school people from the '80s who are like, we only want hand drawn stuff, and I understand their viewpoint. But you also said you can't stop progress, and we can't put Pandora back in its box. It is here. Yeah. I think that as much as I don't like it, I don't think anyone here likes it. You're going to get left behind if you don't know how to use this stuff, I think.
Yeah, and someone else was asking, I think, in the chat about getting an artist for a comic book, and I guess AI is a way to do it, as you're saying, if you can put in that artwork, or put in the hard work, not the artwork. On that same note, I still have trouble finding artists to do my own stuff. A lot of artists are so talented, and they have such, they have their own imaginations and ideas. So they're a lot of times they're busy on their own stuff. So they don't want to do your stuff. And I don't blame them. If I was a great artist with all my ideas, I wouldn't have time to go work on somebody else's stuff, right? So I come from the world of animation, and I've had to do a lot more pitches to the studios in animation than I have in comic books. Now, a lot of times when you go to pitch to an animated series, the studios will say, no, we don't need artwork. We just need your words, because, that's where, everything starts. It's the idea. And as a writer, I'm like, I agree. But they're just saying that, like, they still need to see something to actually visualize it. Now, if I go into a pitch and I don't have artwork, it's harder to sell the pitch without some artwork. It's hard for me to get an artist to do artwork for me, even if I'm paying them. I have no problem paying people for what they're worth. I want to pay artists. It's still hard to get them. So I think with AI, for someone like me, I could use that AI if I wanted to, because I can't find an artist. Again, I can't find an artist to even pay to do my stuff. I could come up with the concepts in that AI program, go pitch it to a studio to help just sell the concept. And then that's when I would bring in, the actual true talented artist to kind of just do it their own way.
Yes.
but using AI to help sell the idea, and not actually employing AI to take anybody's jobs in the future. So I think it has a place.
I think that's a great idea.
I
And it
get
actually
that.
ties directly into one of the Q&A questions. Did you assemble your illustrator and inker as your creative team, or were they put together for you by the DC editor?
Yeah, good question. So DC, they have this amazing roster, obviously, of talent. So they're the ones that came to us with a few different artists. They said, "Hey, we think, this character." So anybody who's watching, this is our superhero Primer. She's a 13-year-old girl. They came to us with some people. We never actually suggested anybody because they wanted to come at us with people that they trusted, and that was perfect because DC again knew exactly what they were doing. Uh, so they brought us, I think, 3 different artists and said, "Hey, which of these styles do you like the best?" And we're like, "Oh, this one's amazing." So we didn't have really much work to do. They came again to us with these people, and we just had to like pick and choose. With someone like Image, yeah, you'd have to go find that yourself. Your artist, letterer, inker, everybody. But yeah, I mean, DC made it very easy for us.
I'll springboard off of that because I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. I woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to make a comic book. And then I wrote it and I found an artist on Craigslist and he was pretty good. But like you said earlier, like managing that artist and getting them to do what you want them to do eventually became difficult.
Mhm.
In this process with Primer, like how are you managing that artist and making sure that your vision is being told, but while also, respecting their abilities as artists?
Yeah, very good question. I feel like the when you get someone who just has amazing instincts, like our artists. Our first artist was Gretel. Now we have a new artist named Nicoletta for the sequels. I think a testament to what they can do is the fact that they can just do it so well without much instruction. It makes it easier for us. We just trust them, and we give very little notes because they're just so good at their jobs. Yeah, I mean, I can see. I worked with artists in other comics too, and yeah, I honestly I don't know what it is, but everybody has been so good, and I'm not like,
Good.
and I know good art when I see it. I know junky art when I see it. If they were coming at me with some bad artwork, I would let them know, but they haven't done it. So it's just you're lucky if you can get an artist that has great intuition. Also, when we do the scripts for comic books, they are different from writing a script for TV, as you guys know, because in a way you really are the director. If I'm writing on a TV show now called Bat Wheels, it's about the Batmobile talking, and it's like a kid show. So I can just like write like a 1 sentence action line for the storyboard artist to go off and just kind of like do their own thing with. With a comic book, I have to like, since I'm in charge of every panel on that page and parsing it out, making sure we have only 2 panels or only 4 panels. We can only have this number of dialogue. Like I'm really the director. I have to describe everything in detail if I want it done right. So an artist, again, she has great, instinct. She knows what she's doing, but she's also following a pretty strict script. So not much room for error from them if they can, if they can read your writing and understand it. But yeah, I don't know what I was talking about, but
No, I think that's a lot of really good
the
information.
primer. Yes.
Yeah.
By Primer. That's the gist of it. We're getting a couple questions about creator-owned comics and kind of like working with freelance artists to make yourself. I've got experience with that, so I'm going to tackle some of these.
Please do.
I will walk through my experience with trying to get this done, and it's not a happy story, unfortunately. So after I read Saga, I was very much like, I'm all in. I want to make this. I'm going to put this out into the world. I worked 2 jobs for a while, saved up a bunch of money, and went on Facebook and Reddit, in which there are subreddits and there are groups on there which are basically like hungry artists looking for work. They're artists who will post their portfolios and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. These are my page rates. Page rate is essentially, if you want me to draw a page, pencil and ink, this is how much I charge. Colorists are on there too, sometimes letterists, but it's a lot of line artists, pencilers, and inkers. And so I wrote a script. I talked with a couple of people. I found somebody that I really liked. I hired him and I sent him half the money for a 44-page comic up front. And for a 44-page comic, I think he was like $100 a page. So he was like $4,400. I think I sent him 2,200, something like that. And he started working and he was delivering some really awesome stuff. I've still got his files somewhere. If I find them after I'm done talking, I'll share the screen again and do that. But kind of like what Ronnie was saying, it's like you have to realize at that point you're not just their creative partner in this endeavor, you're also their boss because you're paying them for a job. So it's also about people management skills, which I didn't have. So he started off really fast delivering pages, and then a couple months later he went from 5 pages a month down to 2 pages a month. And then there was 1 month he didn't deliver anything. And finally I checked in and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, sorry, my dog, was sick and my dad has cancer and my wrist hurts and all that." And you want to be the cool boss. You want to be like, "Oh yeah, I totally get it. Understand. Take all the time you need." And he would come back in with some more pages and then he'd fall off again. And so we just went over this like time and time again. And then his roof broke and he needed more money. And I sent it because, again, you want to be the nice boss to help somebody out of a situation, thinking they're delivering good work. You want to work with people. Eventually, I had to fire him because I was just like, "No, like, I'm sorry, you're not giving me what I want." And so I think I got like 11 pages, half of them inked for $2,200. And if that wasn't worse enough, like right after that situation, I was like, "All right, fine. I just got a bad apple. I'm going to do it again." And I sent $1,100 off to another guy to get started on something. And he just straight up scammed me. I mean, as soon as I sent the money, like a day later, he was like, "Yeah, man, my dog was in the vet and now we owe like $30,000. And so I need to take other jobs over yours to pay that off. But don't worry, I'll get to you." And I never heard from him again. So in terms of the question, working with independent contractors and freelancers, always have a contract in place. That was a very expensive lesson that I learned from that. Pay the $500-$600, talk to a copyright lawyer in your area, have them write up a contract for you. Even if it's not fully enforceable, it's going to scare away the scammers and it's going to make people know, hey, this person is serious. So you want to do that. Someone was also asking about fair revenue split in terms of like the creative aspects of the team. That is entirely up to you and what you work out with them. I will say, I think it is beneficial. One of the lessons I learned from my bad experience was, yeah, you might want to try to nickel and dime somebody, save $10 a page here, save $5 a page here. But you also have to remember that these people are working professionals. And if the job is high paying and it's consistent, they're going to be more motivated to do your work and not drop out when something goes wrong. So there are basically three sort of deals that I know of. One is complete work for hire. It's all upfront money. They own none of the back end. That all stays with you. The other is complete ownership, where you split ownership 50-50. Usually the colorist and the letterer don't get ownership because they're mostly work for hire, but the line artist has enough creative say that generally they will. So it would be 50% you, the writer, 50% the line artist, and there's nothing up front, and you just split the back end, whatever is made, 50-50. A lot of artists that I found don't like that because they have to pay their bills in the time that they're making that. And most comics don't make money, especially if they're independent. So you can try one of those deals, but they haven't been well received from what I've seen. And the other one is somewhere in the middle, where you give less than their page rate up front and they get less of the ownership. So maybe if they would get 50% ownership in the full ownership split and $100 page rate in a full work for hire situation, maybe they get $50 page rate and 25% ownership of the idea. But it's all up to you to negotiate that deal. Again, I will say, I think it's best to make it advantageous for the artist that you're hiring because you want them to want to work on it. As Tom said, all of these artists have their own ideas that they want to work on. I also believe, though, that again, they might be great artists. That doesn't mean that they're great writers. And some of them might not know that they're not great writers, but some of them do. And some of them do say, "Hey, I need a great writer to work on this. I've got the art. I need someone to write for me." But that's a very long spiel. So I'll kind of let you guys chime in and with what you think of that.
No, I just learned a lot from listening to you. So
I know, me too.
That's good to know. Because I think I'd always had that question myself in terms of eventually creating my own comic book with Image or whoever it is. like I didn't know that. I just assumed that all artists would want, 50% ownership and a lot of money. I mean, and that's what I'm always willing to do is like, yes, I believe the artist deserves a lot of credit and they deserve a lot because there's a visual medium. Unfortunately, you can't just write it and then sell it. It has to be, specific drawn. So you taught me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm
Ronnie?
glad that my horrible experience losing thousands of dollars can make sure no one else does it too. Always have a
paid
contract
off.
for everyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. No, I lost thousands of dollars too in that process, but it was a learning process as well. And just understanding, the artist, like how important it is to make them feel important in the process, with that. But I mean, with him, he kind of like started writing my stuff and I was like, you gotta go. But, but, it's the collaboration and the synergy, it needs to be there, whether or not you're doing an indie or within the DC system, I think. Yeah.
You lost money too, though. You paid an artist.
Oh yeah, several $1,000s, which that was it was a lot of money to me in that moment, but it was a learning process. I finished it, and if I had to do it over again, there's like certain things that I, now I know, especially when it comes to, hey, this is the ownership and this is how much leeway you have as the artist to make changes or to make suggestions to the actual comic book itself.
It teaches you how to be a boss, right? Like
yeah.
Once you when you're on the employee side, you're like, why is my boss such a dick? Why are they always on me so hard? But then you put your own money up for it and you don't get what you paid for, and you're like, no, I understand like why people are assholes sometimes, because it's you want to get your money's worth. So I do think this is why there are professional artists and why there are amateurs. If you work with an amateur, you're going to get a lower price, but you're taking a risk that maybe they're an amateur for a reason. Maybe they can't meet deadlines. Maybe they do have their dad get cancer all the time, or their wrist hurts all the time.
Yeah.
Things that I've heard myself. So that's kind of that's the risk you take. It's a lower cost, and maybe you get a really good person, but then when you find that person, you better work with them all the time because you know that they're reliable. It's like having a contractor for your house. Do you have someone who shows up once every 5 months to do half day of work, or do you have someone who shows up exactly when he says he's going to, works 12 hours and gets your stuff done in 4 days? I mean, that's the real.
Yeah, I think I'd be a very bad boss because I don't like yelling or being mean. I'm very rarely a boss, and when I am a very amicable boss, I'm like, sure, whatever. I'll fix your mistakes, no problem. So
don't be mean,
Tom.
Tom.
Me anyways.
Be firm. Don't be mean. Be firm. That's what I've had to learn. But since Ronnie and I have just spilled our souls on our greatest mistakes, Tom, I'm going to throw this one to you. What was the hardest lesson you learned while adapting a screenplay into a comic, or even just generally going from screenwriting to comics for the first time?
Oh wow, the hardest lesson that I learned. I hardly ever learn any lessons, by the way, because I just don't pay attention and I don't care. So I think in terms of I'm trying to think of what mistakes I learned the hard way. Actually, they're this is completely random, but it also has to deal with the business in LA. When I was in film school, one of our teachers was like, "Hey, when you go to LA, just never get involved in company politics in terms of just what happens in the studio, not politics, but just how the studio's run, who hates who's bad mouthing who." And I was like, "Oh, that's really good advice. Just say yes, nod, go home." And don't get involved. I've had a few friends who never get involved in the that kind of pettiness at the studios, the very high school cliquey aspect of chittering and just all that garbage. And those people who never get involved always seem to have jobs because they don't ruffle the feathers. Mm-hmm. But once or twice, I just don't like to be a robot, so I would occasionally say things that I feel honestly about, and it would get me in trouble, because I don't want to be a automaton. But those are the people that sometimes just keep working. So that was a kind of a hard lesson for me because there was one specific instance where I badmouthed someone who was a terrible, terrible person, a horrible, horrible person, and it got back to them, and they had a lot of power, and I think they kind of blacklisted me from something for a while. But that was a hard lesson to learn. Just honestly, just it sucks because you shouldn't have to like restrain yourself, especially when people are horrible in this business, but in entertainment in general, especially I think, TV and film, there's a lot of bad people. I haven't really noticed that in animation yet, or comic books yet, but keep your mouth shut,
So your skull is made of wood because you just knocked on it. You just okay.
Yes.
I've got
Making sure.
one here. I'm knocking on it for him.
Yes.
Someone in
thank
the
you.
Q&A asked, Thomas, are you IATSE or WGA? I assume you're WGA.
Yeah, I'm both. IATSE has the Animation Guild, so they're TAG, that handles most of all of children's animation. So I am TAG for kids stuff, like yes, Scooby Doo, Snoopy, and things like that. I am in the Writers Guild, but I haven't actually done any Writers Guild work yet. If you're doing something like Family Guy or Primetime Animation, a lot of those shows are covered under the Writers Guild, which is great because they give you residuals. The Animation Guild, which is what I mainly work with, does not give you residuals. So yes, I'm in both of those. But yeah, Writers Guild, they take care of you a
Does the
lot.
Animation Guild not give residuals just because you have a bad deal? I'm surprised by that.
Don't get me
Okay.
started. It is.
Oh God.
I wish I could bring on one of my friends here too, like an old pro in the business who could.
We can do another symposium if you want.
No, and he's retired
Ragtag,
now.
that's
I
what
don't
it's
think.
called.
Yeah, I don't think he'd have any problem telling you exactly what he feels. It's weird because the Animation Guild. I think a lot of the studios use it the excuse that, well, you're just cartoons, guys. You don't make that much money. You don't. You
Shut the
shouldn't
hell
get.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut
Meanwhile,
the hell up.
SpongeBob makes like $1 billion a year in merchandise.
Oh my God.
Is
Really?
played constantly.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
wow.
for a while it was making $1 billion a year in merchandise. And so
Why didn't I think of
animation.
that?
Yeah, and when you think about it, animation is what saved us through the pandemic, and we
Yeah.
still never got that respect. We still treated even by our own industry as, well, we're just animation guys. You shouldn't be able to get residuals. Again, there are people who do really really well, like Steven Hillenburg, the guy. I believe he's passed away a few years ago, but he created SpongeBob, and he had a
Yeah.
great deal because he had merchandise and all that stuff. When it comes to the actual writers on the show, yeah, no. If I was writing on Family Guy, yeah, residuals, really good residuals, because Writers Guild, Animation Guild just doesn't do it. I don't know. I've heard some things, but yeah, it
And
kind of
I bet
sucks.
those people who were saying that you all aren't real creators were probably the same guys who loved Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh,
I
of
would be
course.
willing to bet that the Venn
Yeah.
diagram is almost a circle.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course.
pretty much. It's
Yeah.
it's too bad because I really do love working in animation. I work with a lot of awesome people, mostly awesome people. So it just kind of sucks that that's the way that is. We feel like we don't get the respect, and as I said earlier, we saved the industry during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think the two biggest films this year were Despicable Me 4 and what's that other animated movie that came out this year? I forget. It's always animation that
Was it
does
Spider-Man last year?
Yeah, I mean, there was Super Mario Brothers, which made
Oh,
over
yeah.
$1 billion and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So it does so well, and it makes billions of dollars and all this money off merchandise. But still,
Oh, it was
wait,
Inside Out 2.
Inside Out, yes,
Yeah.
Inside Out too.
Yeah. I was surprised how
So
much money that made.
I know, so was I.
Ronnie, why don't you ask some questions here? I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Well, so I do have a question that came to mind as we were talking, and being in animation, I feel like it helps with the comic process. Like
Oh
when I
yeah,
was going through that crappy process, understanding timing and what the storyboard process and stuff like that helped me. What skills or tools do you think writers who may not be in animation or may not understand comic books, what do you think they should bring or learn when entering this area?
yeah. It's funny because I do think about that sometimes. I thought about what writing and animation taught me in terms of writing in general, and
Mm,
what it taught me uh, the mostly was that if I'm doing an 11-minute cartoon, which is mostly what I do, kids cartoons are 11 minutes long. It's Fairly Odd Parents, Penguins of Madagascar. If I want to get my story told completely, I have to be very like economical or conservative with my words. I have to choose my words carefully because there's only so much page I can type on to tell the artist to draw this, to tell the voiceover artist to say, what I need to be said in dialogue. So I became I became like an expert at just kind of like whittling it down to the bare minimum to get my points across, so the story could be told with its emotional beats, with the visuals I needed, with the jokes landing. Because I only had 11 minutes to tell the story. If I'm doing like a 44-minute episode of some primetime show, I feel like I have a lot more leeway with being able to kind of like just let things breathe, and take my time. But with an 11-minute cartoon, you don't have scripts are mainly like what, 14 to 17 pages, probably 14 pages these days. Um, so when I went to write for comic books, I kind of took that same those teachings with me. Just be just use my words carefully, um, and to kind of not condense the story, but just make it flow without being extraneous. I don't know if that makes any sense. But I often do think about how animation, I think anybody who wants to go on to write screenplays in general, like features, should learn to write animation for an 11-minute cartoon, because it really teaches you to not overdo it.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I teach people through the articles and through coverage for Script Pipeline how to write screenplays and how to write well. And one of the things I always say is if you really want to learn to write, watch children's content. Because
Yep.
even if you watch animated movies or TV shows, they don't hide what they're doing, because for kids, I feel like, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, Tom. I think that when people write for adults, they try to get really cute with the structure, or they're like, oh, I'm going to hide this twist in here. It's like, you don't have to do that for kids. They're not going to see it. And so if you want to learn great structure, watch Wreck-It Ralph, watch Zootopia, watch any Pixar movie. Finding Nemo, I quote all the time in terms of how you tell a great story.
Yeah,
You can learn how to be a great writer by watching stuff that's targeted at children.
that's a really good point. Yeah, and yeah, nobody really kind of understands that. But that's a good point. Yeah.
Here's a cool one. To all presenters, what superhero movie most inspired you to focus in on the comic book / film industry, and why? For me, I'll answer. For me, it was Sailor Moon.
Ooh, good answer.
And I believe she's making a comeback, which I'm just like, oh yes, I'm excited about that. But watching the show and reading the comics as a child, like it was just exciting. First of all, exciting to see the female character superhero in that day, and just like the fantasy in the world was just so cool that I'm just like, I'm a Sailor Moon fan.
Was that a '90s series from? It was an anime show, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And it was
did
a
it
manga
start?
too.
It was manga. Did it start in the '80s, or did it start in the '90s? Actual animated series. So I know Sailor Moon. People love that.
I don't know when it started.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like Sailor Moon is
because
really old.
it really kind of was like groundbreaking. I remember people. Yeah, it was. There was nothing like that.
Yeah.
That big anyway.
It was the first show that I remember seeing with a consistent female protagonist. I don't think I saw a show before that have a female in that role. And so I watched a lot of it too. Tuxedo Mask, I'll never forget him. Always showing up whenever he needs to be there.
The greatest love story ever told. Ever told.
1,000%. No,
it looks
Sailor
like
Moon
it started in 91, I think.
Wow. That sounds about
91.
right.
Yeah, that sounds right. For me, it wasn't superhero. I was not a superhero kid, although I did watch, Batman, the animated series, and Spider-Man, the animated series. But my foray into comics, as I've already said, was Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I still think that is one of the best stories being told right now. I relish every month when I get to go into the comic shop and buy an issue. I'm just hooked on those characters. And I got into Hollywood not because I wanted to make Star Wars 5 or Star Wars 6 or Godzilla 7 or whatever it was. I wanted to find the next great original story. And I was really disappointed when I got there and I saw, oh, we're not focusing on that at all. I mean, that's just not what Hollywood does anymore. And so I was in a pit of despair for a long time because I was creatively unfulfilled. I wasn't making enough money in a really expensive city. I felt like all my friends were fake. Like all of the bad things you hear about LA were kind of like impacting my life. And then when my boss happened to throw that comic on my desk, it was like, wow, this is what I've been trying to find. And it kind of opened all these doors into other great stories that comics were telling. So for me, it wasn't a superhero, but Saga feels pretty super to me.
We could also go off about LA. I have a massive love-hate relationship with LA about all those things you said. But Yeah, no, for me, it was definitely the Batman movie in 1989. I mean, I saw that when I was 12 years old. And I mean, I'd already been a superhero fan before that. But that really made me like a much bigger superhero fan. And that got me drawing Batman all the time and wanting to be a comic book artist. Specifically, I think that movie. Um, and then any movie that came out after, like Ninja Turtles came out like a year later.
Oh, I love those movies.
Yeah, yeah, man.
Those movies were so good.
I love that original one. Yeah.
Speaking of Batman, on your Instagram 11 weeks ago, you made a post about Batman origin rewrite.
Oh yes. Okay. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. One dream that came true for me this year is that I got to write like a Batman short story for an anthology series that DC came out with earlier this year, and I wrote a 10-page story for them that I pitched. They wanted something, blah blah blah. I could pitch them whatever I wanted. I pitched them a Batman story, um, and they said it would become canon. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I don't think it really matters. That's not like it was a story that got widely seen or whatever, even though it was published wide. But I don't know if anybody picked up and said, oh my gosh, this is a groundbreaking story. But yeah, I wrote a story about Bruce Wayne and like his well, I guess I can spoil it. Probably no one's gonna go pick it up. But
Not with that attitude.
Huh? No,
Not with that attitude.
It is a great story, I'll tell you. And the art's great. So pick it up if you like comics. It's called Batman Cold Feet. And if you know Batman, he has a nemesis named Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
And so in the story, it's Batman taking Mr. Freeze down with something that Batman learned in his past from Mr. Freeze's wife. So it's like it's a very strange kind of like connection between them that they've never expressed in any Batman comics before, where I had young Bruce Wayne at like 10 or 12 years old meet Mr. Freeze's wife. She teaches him a lesson. He uses that lesson as an adult. It's very poetic and garbagey and very, tooting my own horn kind of thing, but they liked it. So, hey, I was happy to write it. But yeah, writing a Batman story was a dream come true, like an official DC Comics Batman story.
Well, thank you for being humble, but that's dope as hell.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I'm excited.
My question with that was like, what are the good and bad points that you had when it came to writing such a huge IP? And like, when you're doing it, are you thinking about like, the fans and disappointing them, or making them excited? Like, what was going through your mind doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just didn't want to waste my chance. Like, they gave me just 10 pages to tell a Batman story. And I was like, all right, what's something that someone might remember in just 10 pages? So I kind of wanted to come up with something that I thought was cool and something that I thought the fans would think would be cool. Like, I would never want to insult the fans by just, cranking out garbage. But I also kind of thought nobody would ever really see it anyways, because it was just a 10-page story. So obviously, just respecting what they've already created in the Batman universe, I wanted to stay true to that. And so I guess in some ways I didn't really worry about the fans because I am a fan. So I kind of wanted to write something for me because I feel like I'm a good, litmus test for what a Batman, reader would be like. So it's a story that's kind of flowed naturally. And I don't think I worried too much about anything else. I just want to tell something that was fun and some people might think was somewhat smart. So yeah. I don't know. Check it out.
Here's another question from the Q&A, and this is for both of you guys. In animation, how do you strike a balance between on-the-nose dialogue and subtext to ensure that the story is clear, yet layered and nuanced for a multi-age audience?
Ronnie?
I'm probably bad for this right now because my last job was on a preschool show. So that was like no subtext allowed.
Yeah. What show was that? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, it was Pupstruction on Disney Junior. And
okay, yeah.
that was my first preschool series being on. And it was like, it's such a huge difference because I went from rock, paper, scissors on Nick to that. And it was just like, it was like night and day, but it, like you said, learning how to condense and tell a story in very short words, like preschool will definitely get you there.
Is that funny? Like, did you find, I found like the transition to writing for preschool is tough for most of us writers. Did you find it to be like, whoa, like it's actually very hard to write preschool, isn't it?
Yeah, the story editor was just like, this is too complicated. I'm like, it's just the word. It's just a certain word. Like, how's it too complicated? But they're 3 and 4 years old, so it's really, it gets you back to your
Yeah.
roots mentally and the foundation of language, and like choosing your words very, very wisely.
And when you came from Rock Paper Scissors, you said
Yes,
that's a Nickelodeon animated series
yes. That
based
I
in
think that came
Burbank.
out last year.
Who
No,
who's
I was on the Zoom.
yeah?
That was that Zoom time.
Who what was there a production company behind it, or was it just Nickelodeon? It wasn't like an
That was
acquisition or
that was Nick.
Nickelodeon?
That was Nickelodeon produced, and I think they eventually went back in house because I was on there from like, I think 2021 to 22.
Oh wow.
But yeah, that was a Nick production.
What did you work with Claudia Spinelli or Daniel, or who do you remember
Daniel,
who your executives were?
Daniel was an exec on that.
Yeah,
Daniel was an
yeah,
exec on that. Yeah.
yeah. Those are just a side note. Like speaking of people who I really like working with, specifically Claudia Spinelli at Nickelodeon was always it is one of the best. She actually went to school for animation, so I can slam some executives probably, but like when you talk about some people who actually really care about the medium that they're working in, because we're kind of talking about that earlier, like with editors like Claudia Spinelli, who probably worked on your show as well. It's fun to work with people like that. So Nickelodeon is a
Yeah,
great place to be.
yeah, I didn't get to meet her, but like, yeah, Dan was cool. Everybody was
Mhm,
really,
Daniel.
really cool. Like, it's a cool experience. But like I said, like going from that, because like the room was just so vibrant, and
Yeah.
it's just adults making stuff for themselves, pretty much.
Yeah, it's true.
To preschool was like, you know, we fell short of having like a psychiatrist, like a doctor for children, come in to tell us like, this is not the right word to use in this sentence.
A lot of productions actually do that. Like the ones I do for
Yeah.
some of the preschool, they have to pass it through the I forget the name, whatever you said, like those specialists who know
Yep.
what you can and can't say around kids, or what could be some trigger words for kids. And it's pretty like it does make it really difficult to write preschool. It really does. So it's
Yeah.
probably the hardest one to write, I think, in all animation.
So in general, guys, words matter, especially the younger the audience.
Yeah, that's true.
We've got about 10 minutes left here, so I'm going to try to rapid fire through some of the
Okay.
questions we haven't gotten to. Someone asked, what's it like working in an animation writer's room as opposed to a non-animation room? I'm not sure. Has anyone here worked in a non-animation writer's room?
No, I feel like it's relatively the same. I was going to
That's
say
kind of what
that.
I would think, but I didn't think that we
Yeah,
knew the answer to that question. So
yeah,
I was kind
probably
of
don't.
avoiding
So.
it for a while. Do you have any particular process for selecting a story out of the many you may have that you are confident will work? I'll answer quickly and say that when I'm writing, I look for a couple things. I look for good structure. I look for, am I passionate about it? Meaning, will I be interested enough to stay with it through all the ups and downs of writing it? And I look for characters that I'm interested in and emotional beats. If I have all four of those
Wow,
things, it's generally a sign that I should probably write the thing.
that's a really good answer. I was just going to go with what you said, which is passion. And whatever I'm feeling like a really good about, that's what I'm going to do. Whether I think it can be sold or not, whatever fires me up, that's all I can really do to get me writing. But
Ronnie?
For me, it literally keeps me up at night. Like I can't sleep. Like it's constantly running in my head. I can
Yeah.
see the scenes. I can see, hear the dialogue, and it has to be written down.
It's
Mhm.
just bursting out of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Classic sign of a writer. This is for both of you guys. How did you first find your way into script coordinating? Did you have to be a writer first?
Because that first job was in production management, but my first script coordinating job was Black Dynamite.
Mm.
That was a weird story, actually, and this is where it's just like you never know what your origin story is going to be, so just put yourself out there and be prepared. Because I actually got on Black Dynamite because of a Craigslist ad for a typist.
Wow.
The producer put out an ad because she was looking for somebody to take notes for the showrunner, and
So they were
the
looking for a
production
writer's
company-
PA.
Yes, but she
And they
put out a
labeled it a
Craigslist-
typist on
a
Craigslist?
typist. And at that time, I was like in between jobs, and I was just doing what I needed to do to survive. So I was doing transcription work.
Oh
And
wow.
so
Yeah.
I'm doing
wild.
I'm doing transcription work. I'm looking for transcription jobs, answering that for a typist, and end up at Titmouse Studios with Afro Samurai on the wall and Boondocks posters on the walls. And I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You never know. And that's how I got it.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah.
But you always loved writing anyways though, right? You were always a creator.
I was ready, and I got the job that day.
That's amazing.
That's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I feel it helps to know writing if you're going to be a script coordinator. I got it, like I said, just through a friend of a friend, but I was prepared because I had gone to school for screenwriting. And when you're a script coordinator, you have to handle all the scripts. You have to redo some formatting. I don't think you necessarily have to know storytelling at all. You just have to know formatting because that's your job. You're not the storyteller. You're just not just, but you are the script coordinator. You're not really adding any creativity to it. But I think it helps you get the job if you tell them that you're a writer and you know that's what you're interested in, because they know you'll take it probably more seriously than just somebody taking it just to have a job as a script coordinator and just to pay the bills. So I think it definitely helps. Yeah.
Tom, are there any opportunities for artists who want to learn the comic animation style? I assume that's just practice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to look for those questions on here. I'm having trouble without my glasses. Yeah, I think it should. I really think it really is just practice. It's like I learned storytelling by reading a lot of comics and watching a lot of movies. So it's really just like doing your own research, I suppose. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think it's gonna be the same for this question. I am scripting a Batman story with Batman Bruce Wayne as an African American in the majority African American Gotham. Who should I be looking to get the finished product in front of? I think it's who you know, right?
I think it's who you know. I feel like with something like that, like we were saying, unfortunately, scripting doesn't really get you anywhere in comics unless you're already somebody or have your connections. So like even if I were to come up with that, or well, a story similar to that, I'd probably have trouble getting it made just because, you know, I, they probably already have so many, specifically with Batman, they already have like a lot of his future mapped out in terms of like the books and stories they want to tell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a great idea, but to get it in front of somebody's eyes, you also have to remember you can't necessarily write a script for a TV show and just hand it to a producer because they could get sued if anything you see from your script shows up on TV, even if they had the idea first. So it's like you have your Batman Elseworlds story with with all of that. It sounds awesome, but they might have something like that in the works, or they just don't want to legally touch your story. Yeah, it's really tough. If again, as you were saying, it's like, yeah, if you knew somebody, I could probably get stuff in front of my editor's eyes and be like, hey, what do you think of this? But I'm in a unique position.
Batman's an
I was gonna say
institution.
they probably seek you out as opposed to
right.
Yeah.
Batman is its own institution. It's a $1 billion franchise by itself. Like that's a really hard one to break into. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, it's like the castle's already been constructed and you've got to scale really high walls to get in, unfortunately.
Yeah, they also already did like an African American Batman, or they did Black Batman like a few years ago. And I don't know if it took off or not, but there was one that they did, and I know they've had him on TV on Batwoman, and he had an awesome costume. I'm all about the cool costumes, so I was sold. But I mean, yeah, it's I wish I could say it hasn't been done, but they do like everything. Batman's been around for so long; they've kind of tackled every avenue you can think of for new versions of Batman.
Yeah. Do any of you teach classes in scripting comics the way Ron Mars does? I know I don't, but I'm assuming that I'll let you guys answer.
No. Ronnie, would you, Ronnie?
Still learning. I made that one big mistake. I'm still learning.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm a terrible teacher, by the way. Like, I've tried to teach my wife to write a screenplay, and I am just the worst. Like, I cannot do it. I wish I could teach a class, but I'm so bad.
Here's what I'll say about this, because I was not really a writer when I wrote the comic script that I have and I want to get made and that I still like very much. But I had been around screenplays a lot. So to answer the question of like, how do you learn to be a great writer? One thing I'll say is read. Try to read as much as you write, because that's always going to help you. Number two, look for ways that you can see how other people do it. The way that I did it is I bought the hardcover volumes of Saga, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And in the back of volumes 1 and 3, Brian had included like a 30-page long epilogue of basically him talking about like, here's how I made Saga. Here's scripts for these episodes that I wrote. Here's the exact process I went through. I used those like my textbook, and I actually had to buy a second volume 1 hardcover because I broke the spine of my first one that I had flipped through it so much. So look for ways like that, and that can be your own education if you are willing to put in the work for it. How effective is a promo comic, 4 to 8 pages, to promote your comic before it comes out and help pitch it at a Comic-Con? This is something that I'm looking into because I'm trying to do independent comics. I think I went to HeroCon in North Carolina, and I talked to some people there. And one of the guys I talked to is a working comic writer, and he said, create a comic to use as your business card. So if you can make a short comic that you can hand out at conventions and saying, hey, I'm looking to break into the business. Here's a sample of my work and the creative team that I put together. If you have any needs at any point in the future, my information's in there. Please feel free to give me a call. It's a great way to basically show what you can do. And, you only put more balls in the comic lottery that might hit your number if you do that. So I think it's actually a really great thing. But what do you guys think?
I was just going to say, I could use the stack of failed comics I have as a business card. I didn't even think about that.
Where's your stack of failed comics? Do you actually have some comics with you?
Oh yeah, they're in the closet.
Oh, so we can't see them. Now I want to see your comics. I think that was probably some of the best advice because I talked with this artist many years ago before I started going to Comic-Con named Xander Cannon, and he told me to make my own mini comic and then, hand it out at Comic-Con, but also charge for it. And I was like, why would I charge people for trying to get my comic? It's like, if they pay for it, they're more likely to read it.
Oh, well, that's true, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I still feel like Comic-Con, a lot of people there specifically, they love the freebies. So it might be different there. I think you had some better advice, actually.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings to another great question. If it's all about who you know, how do you ask that person to take you on? And I almost said this when you were talking earlier, Tom, and I'm kind of glad it got brought up again. Hollywood is all about networking. Ronnie knows that. I know that. You know that, Tom. And the best way that I have found to get the most out of your connections, don't ask for something right away. I'm sure that the reason why the person who you knew or your writing partner knew, who was an editor at DC, became their friend because instantly you weren't asking for something. It became a friendship of true value rather than just, oh, you work at this company and you can give me something and I'm going to keep hounding you until you do. That's how you become a burden. So the best way that I know how to have people help you, just be their friend, ask what they do, and then tag it in the back of your mind, but don't jump on it right away. Maybe meet them 5 times, grab a drink, grab lunch, go to a party. And then once you've known them for 6 months and you're cool, then ask for something because they're so much more likely to help you if you've built up that social interaction and they don't think you're just using them for your own means.
Yeah, that's perfect. I will sometimes go to meet and greets with executives or producers, and that's totally different. They know I'm coming in to specifically talk about, hey, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? But to break in, you just gave the perfect response. Unfortunately, it does take time and it does take the schmoozing. I'm very bad at that. I don't like going to parties just to meet people for the industry and kind of put on that fake anything just to pretend to get to know somebody. I don't do that. I'd probably be a lot farther in this business if I did, because to me, it just feels, disingenuous. Yeah. But that's what you do need to do. You just need to hammer it out and keep after these people and hopefully become, authentic, not friends, but on the good terms with them, just being cool naturally, if you can, play that off that way.
It's a delicate dance that, I feel like it also takes a certain level of cockiness from the very beginning because you have to believe that you're needed. And so if you believe that you're needed, you're just going to do your work, you're going to go about your business, and people are going to gravitate towards you as opposed to constantly looking to who you can grab onto, because that's not the way.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. I know a lot of cocky people actually do make it in this business, a lot of jerks. So
unfortunately, it's true. All right, we got time for one more question, and I think it's perfect for both of you. Any advice for someone wanting to write their own animated series? What would you tell someone who's just starting out trying to write for animation?
learn the industry and learn the business and learn what it takes. Like I said, my goal from a child was to be an animator. I went to school for animation.
Wow.
I worked on pegs, like I understand hand drawn flipping animation and
Wow.
learn from there to 3D. And now I'm learning about AI because I'm like, well, that's the future. So just learn what it takes to be in animation. And that comes from either research or just being out there, putting yourself out there, being in the scene. If you need to go to school, go to school. If you need to move to another state, move to another state, like be around the industry, I would say.
Yeah, I can't add to that. That's perfect. That's exactly it.
And with that, I think
I'm gonna pop back on.
Ronnie's comics.
It's too shiny. What is it?
I know. Is
it a hollow foil?
Is it?
Damn it. I can't see it. Hold on. Let me turn this off. I have a giant TV, but it's called The Ledger. It's called The Ledgerman. It's about Black Herman, who is an actual real Black magician at the turn of the 20th century.
Oh no, she froze again.
Just post it online so we can all read it.
Yeah, he was basically like this really he was this really interesting person who believed he was magic, and he was around with Houdini and he did like these fantastic shows and traveled the world, and he's just a real historical figure that I decided to turn into a comic.
This should be a show. This should be a comic book kind of show. I've never heard that, and that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
and that cover was
working on it.
Yes. Wow.
And then I have this.
Yes, I love it.
I'm a fan.
Good.
I'm a fan.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. This was wonderful. I learned a lot, and I'm not going into this area. I'm going to stay over here doing my own writing. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I will not be asking you to teach any symposiums.
Good. Good, because you'll get a lot of complaints.
Note, like he said, no, okay, I'll make a little mention of that. But for you guys, exactly. But it was good. But sometimes I feel like these circumstances, like that's why like we like to do these free panels, because it's just sometimes you learn the most from like just a basic conversation.
Yeah.
And people's different life experiences. And there's no one way to do anything. I mean, the three of you have all different experiences with it, and it's good for everybody to hear all the different ways in. But also, I thought it was really funny that the commonality that Tom and Ronnie have about, animation and, working in reality.
They're basically the same person. You can't tell them apart.
Basically.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're twins. We're twins. Surprise.
Okay, so I want to tell everybody what's coming up. On Monday, the 29th, we have another free session with publishing guru Jane Friedman. And if you want to know anything about the publishing industry, this woman knows everything. And this is going to be a rare opportunity where it's going to be kind of like this, where I'm doing a one-on-one with her, but everybody can ask questions. So it's not often you get to ask questions. And then we have a few symposiums coming up. I don't have them live on the site yet, but make note. On Monday, August 5th, we have Bob Sane teaching a writing to budget. He's very good at that. He gets hired to rework scripts just to fit certain budgets. And then Amanda Graham is going to be teaching networking strategies on August 12th. And then we have a free session, a book contest tips panel with myself, Matt, and Kira Dugan, who's runs Book Pipeline for us. And we're going to be giving you all the tips of because we do the reading for the contest. So we're going to tell you what makes it pop and what makes us fall asleep. So, and you don't want to put us to sleep. Thank you again for coming, and thank all of you for showing up. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
That's right.
Primer.
Thanks for having me.
Primer.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Symposium is brought to you by Pipeline Artists, a division of Pipeline Media Group. To learn more about upcoming live symposiums, visit symposium.pipelineartists.com and follow us on Twitter @PipelineArtists.